So I want to talk today about the signs that your employer is setting you up to fail and what you can do about it. It's one of the hardest things employees face at work when it feels like your employer is just setting you up to fail and you can't do anything about it. Can't exactly put your finger on it, but you know something's going on. You're not paranoid. You're probably picking up on patterns. And those patterns matter because they might be just creating a paper trail to justify firing you later on. So I'm going to walk you through the warning signs that your employer is setting you up, why they do it, and what you can do to protect yourself both legally and strategically. And before I go on, I'll ask that you, if you like my content, to please hit the like button. And if you've not subscribed, please do so because it goes a really long way in helping me to continue bringing you content like this. I really enjoy doing it. So let's get into it. Signs you're being set up to fail. Number one, this is a big one. You suddenly start getting vague criticism. You used to get really good feedback. Then out of nowhere, your manager starts saying things like, you're just not meeting expectations, or your attitude has changed, or you need to show more initiative. But the thing is, they can't tell you exactly or specifically what to fix. You just need to fix something. And that's a red flag. Vague criticism builds a record that something's wrong with you without giving you a chance to fix it. Number two, your workload quietly doubles. All of a sudden, they pile on all these extra assignments, impossible deadlines, or they give you work outside of your job description. And when you can't meet those demanding, ridiculous deadlines, they call it poor performance. That's not development, that's sabotage. Number three, you're left out of key meetings or emails you used to be included on. You can't meet expectations when you don't even know what's expected. So when information stops flowing your way while everyone else is staying in the loop, it's a deliberate setup. They want to make you appear incompetent and out of touch. That's the goal. Number four, all of a sudden they're documenting everything about you. If you suddenly see a shift from casual check-ins to everything being in writing, that's not a coincidence. They're building a file that may end up in HR to justify your termination. And if they start saying things like per our conversation, you can bet it's being added to your personnel record. That's their way of saying, we talked about this. You might be amazed by how much they put in your file without even knowing about it. The so-called verbal counselings that they have with you that you see in your file all of a sudden are just sometimes completely whole cloth made up. So you have to make your own files. Now, I have my book, document everything. The link is I'll put the link in my description. So you can either purchase my journal or use your own so that you can start documenting everything that happens to you at work, because you've got to have your own files. You've got to have your own version of what happened because they are certainly putting together their version. But I want to tell you, every time I have a lawsuit and we start issuing subpoenas for all of your records, my clients are just amazed because they make up all the stuff, put it in the file, and it just amazes me the extent to which employers will just do anything to try to win. They're not all like that, but there sure are enough of them that are that way. So my clients are shocked when they see these files with all these supposed write-ups and things that happen that they know nothing about. So that's why documenting your version of everything that's happening to you at work is absolutely important. Because believe me, I see it all day. I see it all the time that these employers don't have any problem making up stuff. So there's that. And number five, this is like when you're at the end, and this is the big one. They give you a surprise performance improvement plan. Yes, the infamous PIP. When your goals are vague and timelines are short and success criteria is pretty much unclear, that's not improvement. They're not trying to improve you. They're trying to document a paper trail to fire you. And it always blows me away when I see these really short PIPs, like 30-day PIPs. There's nothing you can do in 30 days to turn around performance that is supposedly so bad that it warrants placing you on a performance improvement plan. 30 days, what can you do in 30 days? So, just by the length of it, that a lot of times it's just, there's they don't intend anything good to come from that. And then, they're supposed to meet with you and talk with you about what you're doing so wrong and help you improve. But if they're not meeting with you and they're giving you these ridiculous goals or no goals at all, then the PIP is just pretense. They are using it to build a paper trail to be able to say, see, we did everything we could to try to save her career. That's all that does. We went through everything we could. We had no choice, so we had to terminate her employment. So here's what I tell people. As soon as you're placed on a PIP, you need to start looking for another job. If it works out, that's cool. You don't need it. But you need to start looking for another job because PIPs are really just you're on your way out the door. Does it work out sometimes? Sure it does. But that is the exception and not the rule. Of course, when people come to me, they've been fired. So a lot of times the PIP was the last thing that they went through. But it's, yes, I have heard of some people making it on the other side of the PIP. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. It's just rare. When they go into it, usually the plan is to get rid of you. So the question becomes, why do employers try to set you up to fail? Sometimes it's about money, avoiding unemployment claims or avoiding severance. Other times it's about liability, plain old retaliation, especially if you filed a complaint or reported discrimination or requested an accommodation. Setting you up to fail creates a narrative so they can start blaming you. I see anytime I represent a client and we file with the EEOC, very early on. So once you file with the EEOC then contacts the employer to tell them that they've had an employee come down and file a charge of discrimination. And it's at that point that the employers start isolating my client and they start trying to build this paper trail. A lot of times it started before then, but it really starts after that. No doubt about it. But they want to have a side to tell. They want their version of facts to offer. So you see that a lot for that reason. Because if they can come up with a good enough story, they can say, we didn't fire them out of retaliation or bias. We fired them for performance. Courts, give them great deference. If they can show that your performance was a problem, then courts don't try to interfere with that. You have to be able to say, no, this was not about my performance. And that's when you offer your documentation to say, look, here's what happened. I know they say that. They were creating their paper trail, but at the same time I was keeping my own. And this is actually what happened. And at that point, the judge can't decide who's telling the truth or who's not. That's not the judge's job. That's a job for a jury. But if you don't have a version to offer, if you're only relying on their version of what happened, then the judge can say, well, you don't have anything to refute this. And the judge won't even let it go to a jury. The judge will decide on his own to dismiss the case because he will decide you have not presented sufficient evidence to go to the jury. That is why you hear employment lawyers say all the time, document everything, because you've got to have some evidence to support your version of the facts. No doubt about it, they're going to use every email, every PIP, every note as evidence that you weren't doing your job, even when it was orchestrated. That's why you need your own notes and your own evidence. So again, you can use my journal or you can use your own journal. The point is you have to start documenting right now. Keep a record of everything, dates, meetings, assignments, sudden workload increases, any changes in treatment, and of course, all those vague comments we talked about earlier. If you can, confirm things by email. Thanks for your feedback. Just to clarify, you're asking me to handle X by Friday. That one line can change the entire paper trail. If you start putting in writing all these ridiculous things they're asking you to do, it makes it very hard for them to justify it, especially because they won't be able to show that they were putting other employees through the same thing. So Yeah, that leads me to number 2. Compare your treatment to others. If others with similar jobs aren't going through the same thing, they're not receiving or being subjected to the same treatment, that's evidence of different treatment, which is the foundation of a discrimination or retaliation claim. How are you treated versus how other people are treated? So pay attention. Number 3, you really have to protect your mental health. When you know you're being set up, it's exhausting. You start second guessing yourself, but remember, this isn't about your worth, it's about control. It's about them establishing a narrative, a defense. And the more you react, the easier it is for them to use your frustration against you. So you have to stay calm, stay strategic, and document everything. And finally, make sure you seek legal guidance before you get fired, not after. If you suspect retaliation, discrimination, or setup, a consultation can help you build a timeline and identify evidence before you're fired. You want to be able to plan your exit on your own terms. If you're being set up, it doesn't always mean you have to stay. Sometimes the smartest move is planning your exit quietly, applying for new roles while still protecting your rights with your current employer. Because leaving doesn't mean losing, it means you have decided to move before they push you out. But just do it strategically, not emotionally. Absolutely don't quit without a plan. You will lose all leverage if you do that. So if you take nothing else from this video, remember, being set up to fail doesn't mean that you failed. It means someone else saw you as a threat and wanted to create their own narrative to try to defend themselves. See you next shift.